Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm excited, and not just because I'm in Queenstown. Today I launched my first ever retreat. If you're on my mailing list, you will have seen it. And this is exciting because it's the first time I've ever done it, and it's been one of those things that's been on my bucket list for a while. And I've done a lot of day courses, workshops, you've probably been to some of them. And this is an opportunity to really get some focus time where we spend a weekend together next year, just outside of Wellington, in the bush, really natural surroundings. And you get the opportunity not just to restore, relax, do all the things you want to do on a retreat, but you also get the opportunity to come along to optional workshops. So I'm bringing to that retreat the best of the workshops that I offer across New Zealand at the moment, the stuff that's been most successful this year. That's what we're going to do next year. And of course that's all optional because sometimes on retreat you just want to relax. And I got to admit to being a bit of a retreat enthusiast. I have been on a lot of them, and when I first started to go on retreats, it was then I noticed that I became more aware of not just myself but my priorities and stuff that was going on in my life. And I found that when I got the time, the space, the perspective, it's almost like you have to take yourself out of life sometimes to actually then figure out some of the stuff that's going on in it. And I found that the perspective I got from being on retreats just changed the way I thought, so that I could think about the big stuff, so that I could change bits of my life and tweak where necessary, but also figure out what my real priorities are. And so I'm looking forward to bringing you that next year in April. Check it out on the website. If you're not on the mailing list and you haven't got that announcement this morning, I'll pop the link in this live for you. And so yeah, I'm about to have a weekend in Queenstown, which I'm very excited about, and the sun is out, so it's apparently summer across the whole of New Zealand this weekend, so enjoy that wherever you are. And while we're talking of priorities, this time last week I just finished the annual Women in Leadership program that I run, and one of the things we talked about as part of that workshop was productivity and priorities, because so many of us feel like we're overwhelmed with things to do, we're too busy, and often we don't get time for ourselves or time for the important stuff. And the analogy I used last week I'm going to share with you today, it's a common one, you may have heard it, and it's about the rocks and the sand. So the rocks, and aptly I'm by the lake so there's lots of them, the rocks, they represent your priorities. And the sand, well that just represents all the other stuff we have to do every day. And so often the sand takes priority over the rocks. So if you imagine your day as a jar, if you put the sand into the jar first and you do all those things that's on your to-do list and you feel like it's important and an emergency, and then you try and put the rocks in the jar, you'll find that there's not enough room. But if you put the big rocks in first, then the sand will fit around them, so you can still fill that jar. So if your jar is the amount of time you have a day, figuring out what your priorities are, your big rocks, and doing them first, it means the sand can fit around them. But if we focus on the little stuff, if we do all the busyness, then we find that there's not always room and there's not always time for our priorities, for our big rocks. And then of course the other question is, what are these big rocks? And are your priorities your real priorities? Do they align with your values, your passions, who you are, and what you want to be? And that's one of the things we'll look at on the retreat, as well as some self-confidence stuff, some self-doubt, some imposter syndrome, your strengths, your values, all the stuff that makes you you, as well as how to be the best you. So we'll look at resilience and self-care. And the stuff, I guess, that you've told me over the last year or two has been your favourite stuff and the most popular stuff of what I run. So yeah, let's spend the weekend together and deep dive into that, and I'm pretty sure you're going to get a lot out of it. And not only will you come away rested and refreshed, but you'll also come away energized and with a plan for you, your own plan, to apply this stuff to your life. So I'm off to enjoy a weekend in Queenstown, and it's pleasure, not business, so I'm extra excited about that. I hope you have a fabulous weekend. Mā te wā.